Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The sun had only just dipped below the jagged horizon when Daniel Cruz, a seasoned park ranger, tightened the collar of his jacket against the creeping desert chill. The vast expanse of Mescalero Reservation stretched before him, a labyrinth of pine and sandstone carved by time and the whispered legends that the locals dared not share with outsiders. His footsteps crunched softly over the dead leaves and loose stones as he approached the trailhead that had been shuttered for nearly 40 years. Tonight, under a raven-black sky pierced by cold stars, Daniel was drawn here by something he could neither explain nor ignore. Mescalero Reservation had its own rhythms and secrets, a place where tradition and the modern world clashed and sometimes coexisted uneasily. Daniel had spent most of his life working among its twisted junipers and sacred grounds, guiding hikers, rescuing lost souls, and, on occasion, chasing after poachers. But the canyon of the Silent Wolves Trail was a different kind of place altogether. Closed off since the late 70s after a string of disappearances, the elders called it the Skins Trail. It was said that something ancient and vengeful lurked within, something that wore flesh but wasn't flesh, a creature that roamed at night and howled in voices not quite human. The official reason for the trail's closure was safety concerns, treacherous terrain, unstable cliffs, and potential wildfire risks. But the elders whispered a darker truth. The skinwalkers had marked this land as forbidden. Even local hunters spoke of eerie howls that echoed through the canyons when the moon was new, of fleeting shadows glimpsed between the trees, and of the unexplainable disappearance of cattle and dogs. Daniel had always dismissed these stories as folklore, the kind of superstition that people told to keep children in line or explain the unexplainable. Yet tonight, standing beneath the skeletal incense of juniper and cedar, he wondered if he had been wrong all along. His radio crackled suddenly, the voice of his colleague, Marissa, breaking the silence. "Daniel, how goes it? You sure about going in there? You know that trail's been off limits for decades." "Yeah, I know. Just want to check something," he replied, his voice steady but a trace uneasy. "All right, but keep your eyes open. You're not the only one curious about those legends." Daniel acknowledged and switched off the radio. His flashlight beam cut into the gathering darkness, illuminating twisted vines that seemed to grasp at his boots. The air smelled of damp earth and pine resin, along with a faint, acrid scent he couldn't place. He took the map out, unfolded it, and compared the terrain with his GPS. The path ahead descended into a narrow gorge lined with sandstone cliffs that seemed carved by invisible hands. Minutes stretched into hours as he moved deeper. Then he heard it, a long, undulating howl that rolled through the canyon, echoing off stone walls. His spine stiffened. It was unlike any wolf's howl he'd ever heard. This had something unsettlingly familiar about it. The howl started low and mournful but shifted unpredictably, tipping into strange inflections that resembled human cries. A portion almost sounded like the wail of a woman or a child, twisted and distorted as if filtered through the harsh breath of a wilderness beast. Daniel's ears strained to catch more, but the canyon fell silent again. Unease settled over him, icy and profound. He gripped his flashlight tighter and pressed forward, careful of every step. The trail forked, half hidden beneath a tangle of mesquite and tumbleweed. The left path was marked by broken branches, remnants of red ochre paint smeared on bark, symbols that looked like crude animal shapes and spirals, the language of warning familiar to the elders. Daniel recalled his conversations with Henry Eagle, a tribal elder who had once told him, "You walk that path, you might not return. The skinwalker watches, the one who wears the face of the hunted." His heart pounded. Yet the pull of the mystery was too strong. He chose the left fork. Walking deeper, He felt the air grow colder despite the dry desert night. The howls began again, this time a chorus, distant but looping, a cacophony of voices far too human, laced with pain, anger, and something primal. They seemed to come from everywhere and no place all at once, melding with the wind. Suddenly, a sharp noise cracked the silence. A twig snapped behind him. Daniel whirled around, flashlight slicing through thick velvet blackness, but saw nothing. Voices whispered just beyond sight, speaking a tongue he recognized only partially. It was Mescalero Apache, old words for protection and warning. The whispers abruptly stopped. A cold hand of dread gripped his chest. Ahead, around a boulder sticking out like a jagged tooth, Daniel spotted a figure silhouetted against the moonlight. At first, he thought it was an animal, the hunched posture, the thick fur coating its shoulders, but the eyes glinted with unnatural intelligence and flicked toward him. The creature didn't run. Instead, it tilted its head and emitted a garbled, breathy growl that resembled human speech distorted into rasping clicks and hisses. Daniel's training told him to stand his ground and not panic, but the hair on the back of his neck bristled like serrated wire. "Who's there?" he called out, voice steady despite the shaking in his fingertips. The figure crouched, then moved with a speed that blurred the line between beast and shadow. It vanished into the dense forest as if swallowed by the night itself. Daniel was left alone, the silence oppressing and thick. He shook his head, telling himself it was a trick of the light, a coyote or mountain lion spooked by his presence. But then, the howls surged again, closer now, and unmistakably layered with agonized screams and gurgled laughter. They circled him, a symphony of madness weaving between the trees. His flashlight flickered, the battery warning flashing red. Panic clawed at his ribs, but he forced himself to calm the rising storm inside. He fumbled for his radio, speaking fast and clipped. "Marissa, I'm not alone out here. Hearing things. I'm heading back to the main road. Request backup," he said. Static hissed over the line. No response. Daniel cursed under his breath. The dense canyon walls were dead zones for transmission. Shadows shifted again at the forest edge. He caught a glimpse of multiple figures, gaunt, tall, with bodies covered in matted hair and skin that glistened like wet leather under moonlight. Their faces were human, too human, but twisted by sharp canines, eyes glowing with spectral hunger. The legends were real. Skinwalkers, witches who could wear the skins of animals and people, lurking here, cursed to roam forever between flesh and spirit. Fear propelled Daniel forward. He dashed, heart hammering as those unholy howls and guttural voices pursued. The forest morphed into a frenzied maze, branches clawing at his face, roots catching his feet. Behind him, the howls grew louder, now angry, fractured with screams of rage and sorrow. Suddenly, he stumbled into a clearing bathed cruelly in moonlight. At its center lay a circle of stones, ancient carvings etched deep, symbols of protection and banishment long forgotten. Above floated the crimson glow of a ceremonial fire, though no flames burned. In the center stood a figure, tall and clad in a robe adorned with feathers and bone. Its eyes shone like twin coals, too bright to be human. The figure raised a hand, beckoning Daniel forward with a crooked finger. Daniel froze, his breath icy and shallow. From the shadows stepped others, more skinwalkers, but these appeared less monstrous, almost human. Their faces mourned, eyes flickering with recognition and sorrow. They whispered in the tongue of the Mescalero Apache, reciting a dirge for the lost. The robed figure spoke, voice like gravel and wind. "You are here because the trail calls to those who listen. You see beyond the veil, but do you understand? We walk between worlds, bound by curse and duty. This land remembers what you forget. Daniel forced himself to steady breathing and met the figure's gaze. "What do you want from me?" "To bear witness," it said. "To tell the truth beyond the lies of settlers and time. The trail is closed not just for safety, but to protect the balance." The Skinwalkers were guardians and prisoners of the land's ancient bones, cursed to roam as punishment for crossing forbidden thresholds in ages past. Their howls were not just warnings. They were mourning songs for what had been lost and reminders of what might happen if humans forgot respect. Daniel felt a cold hand grip his mind, the weight of centuries pressing down. He saw visions, the brutal breaking of sacred laws, the betrayal of the land, the shattered spirits trapped in bodies, neither alive nor dead. He saw the faces of the ancestors who prayed for reverence, and the skinwalkers who bore their plight. The robed figure extended a hand. "Will you carry our story, Ranger?" Daniel's voice quivered. "Yes, I will." The creature smiled, something like relief and gratitude, and with a whispered chant, the circle's glow swallowed the clearing. Daniel collapsed onto the cold earth, dawn creeping at the edges of the sky. When he woke, the howls were gone, replaced by the gentle call of morning birds. The trail ahead was clear and welcoming, no longer cloaked in shadow. Back at headquarters, Daniel reported what he had seen but carefully left out the things that sounded impossible. He knew the truth would sound like insanity to some. Yet he carried the weight of the night's witness forever. And sometimes, beneath the cold moon, if you walked the edges of the Mescalero reservation near the Canyon of the Silent Wolves, you might still hear the howls. Too human, too mournful. Not just a warning, but a reminder that some stories are alive, and some curses never end. For more stories, like and subscribe.